Welcome to another guide to, with me, MrSealyp. Belt systems, that's what we're going to be looking at in this guide to video. This is kind of a revisited, and I know we're only a month and a half-ish off of FS19 coming out, and I'm assuming belts and belt systems, conveyor belts, are going to be in the game. We don't know for definite yet. I haven't actually had a look recently on the equipment available, but I'll have to do that. The reason I'm doing this is when I did my first, I think I called it conveyor belts, not long after FS17 came out. It was kind of fresh. I think when I did the video I didn't cover everything the belts did. I certainly didn't cover this one here, the RH2460. I didn't even look at that in my conveyor belts. Since then, of course, we've had new belts come out. There's the Slow Conveyor over the back there, and there's also a Filltrigger version of the Quantum. So we're going to have a look at all those. You may be new to the game, you may have been playing the game for ages, you may know all of this stuff, you may know none of this stuff, but I thought I'd do a kind of roundup looking at all of it, show some examples of how it can be used. This would also by no means be the full extent of how this equipment can be used, because what I love about people generally is that you can give a room of 10 people some equipment and say, right, okay, use it, and they'll use it and they'll find all different ways. You give it to 1 million people and all of a sudden they'll be finding ways of using things you would never have dreamed possible. All sorts of clever ways of doing various different things. So there are numerous ways of using these other than the kind of standard operations that you're looking at. So the first thing I'm going to do is have a quick look into the store. Like I say, maybe you've never used these, you've never thought to, you've never been bothered to, you've never ever had the need to. It might be you use them all the time, I don't know. So, quick look into the store. Under belt systems, now these are the ones that came standard when the game came out. We've got the Lizard S710 on the far left. This is like a pickup conveyor, small little conveyor belt, lifts stuff off the ground and can load onto other conveyor belts. It can also load into lower trailers, it can load into the Joskin 3-points tipper from Black Sheep Modding. There's various different things it can be used for. Very handy little conveyor belt for doing various different jobs. Next to it we've got the RH2460. This is like an offloading conveyor, the start of a conveyor belt system. Very handy in that you can unload into it with trailer and other conveyor belts if you wanted to. It could be part of a system, it doesn't have to be. It also says at the bottom, loading this machine with potatoes or sugar beet will create nicely packed pallets you can sell. Alternatively, it can load conveyor belts with sugar beet or potatoes. Now, I've never ever tried that. That says sugar beet and potatoes. I've only ever used it as a palletizer. I've never used it as a conveyor belt thing, so I'm going to have a look at that in this episode. As far as I know, that won't take any other crops other than those two. So that's, I think, its limitation. We'll have a go. I'll try and see, but I don't think it will do. And we've got the TC8016. Now, this is a kind of extension conveyor belt. I'll show you that in a little bit. That can convey things from one belt to another belt, or from one belt to your end source, wherever you're going to. And then we've got the SL8022 Quantum. This is one that extends upwards as well as outwards. So if you're loading into higher trailers, if you're loading into the anaerobic digester at the biogas plant, trains, those kind of things, this is a very handy belt to use. And those are the standard ones that came in game. If we go across one more, we've now got the Lizard Slow Conveyor. This was from LS-Modcompany, Slow Tide 63. This is a brilliant belt because it does the same as the Grimme SL 8022 Quantum, but it's a lot cheaper, £5 cheaper. But the addition to this one, which made it brilliant when it came out, was this can also transport bales and logs, which a lot of these other ones don't do, which is brilliant. It comes in incredibly handy, and especially if you're doing let's plays, storytelling, that kind of stuff, you can really incorporate in and use it for various different things. Brilliant bit of kit. And then lastly, we've got another Grimme SL 8022 Quantum. Now that says Filltrigger Tools underneath it, and this came out by a modder called Holger Sengstock, and kind of fitted in with a few of the different mods that Holger Sengstock had been releasing anyway. It does exactly the same as the SL8022 that you get in game, but this is a pickup one, and what it can do is it can pick up from different trigger devices, like fertilizer and seed tanks. It can do it from various different bunkers. It will do pallets, big bags, various different things, which the standard one doesn't do. It's exactly the same price. It will do all of the things that that one does, but then there's some additional things it can do. So that's why I thought I would revisit belt systems, because a couple of things I didn't look at before, and there are some new ones out. So what we'll do is very quickly leap over to the first little bit I've got set up, and we'll show you how some of these get used. So starting us off, we'll have a quick look at the Lizard S710. I don't think I've got any other setups ready to go that are going to show this. Like I said, this is a pickup, and this will pick up from the ground because it drops right down to the ground here, and it will go up and it will load onto other conveyor belts. With a lot of the conveyor belts, they will automatically load. Their kind of default setting is they will load, and they'll load to the end of their belt. I've got the help window open in the top left hand corner so that you can see kind of some of the different controls that are available. Like I say, this will unload into lower trailers. It will unload onto the Joskin 3 points tipper, various different things like this. One of the things I've used it for quite a lot, and I think a lot of people often do, is cleaning feed areas, and it's an incredibly handy bit of kit for that, because over time the feed areas get incredibly full of food, leftover, spillage, and you have to keep coming back either with the front loader and bucket, and there's the Lely Juno mod that will clean it up as well. There's a Holoras, I can't remember what it was now, it looks like a tyre. There's various different things that will clean these feed areas up. This works incredibly well. So what you do with most of the conveyor belts, if you don't already know, in the left hand corner it says enter. You enter it like a vehicle by pressing square. If I go L1, it will then say fold belt, so I lift that up, so that will allow me to move it a lot easier. That, if I put that back down again, unfold belt, that's so you can transport it with a tractor or a vehicle that will tow. But you can move these yourself. They're incredibly slow. I think 3 miles an hour is the top speed this will go. If I go R1, I then press start engine. Now obviously conveyor belts will have a motor system or something like that in them. You wouldn't normally get inside a conveyor belt, but for ease of use, so this will go forwards and backwards. You can turn it and adjust where you want to put it. I wouldn't suggest getting in this and driving it from where you buy it to where you're going to use it. And the great thing is, as I approach then, like it is now, the grass is disappearing, or the spill is disappearing from the feed area, and it's going up the conveyor belt. It's automatically lifting it off the ground. So generally speaking, what I would do when I've used them, I will put it somewhere kind of just like this, right at the end of the feed area, and leave it there. And what will happen over time as the animals spill their feed, it will automatically pick them up. It has quite a long reach on this. The kind of fill pickup trigger extends quite a long way out. As you saw as we were edging forward, it was picking it up a long way before we got to it. So normally a standard trough system, this will pick it all up from one end to the other, no problem at all. Some of the longer ones inside barns and things, it doesn't always, and you may have to every now and again just jump in it, drive up the trough area, and it will automatically load. So that one, I've left this for quite a while, so I could kind of show you it. So what I can do now, if I get in it and then drive forward, once the other end gets into the trough area, it will unload it into the trough area and refeed it back to the animals again. So it's a very handy bit of kit. You know, I've used it quite a lot on various different Let's Plays. I've used it for emptying bunker silos and things, using that as the pickup at where all the silage is, and then loading it into and onto other conveyor belts. If I do L1, R1, what you can do if you're picking up something off the ground, it will automatically load the belt up, and like I said, it will stop at the end of the belt. If you want to unload here like you do with other trailers, you just do L1, R1 and triangle, and it will unload the contents onto the ground. And if I do L1, I can adjust this bar at the end. This is another hookup. What you can do is hook conveyor belt systems together so they don't all kind of drift apart. You can lift, raise and lower that bar at the end, so it will actually attach easier to various different other conveyor belts. And that's it. That's the SL, the S710, the Lizard. So I'll jump out of that, turn the engine off. That's how I use it. It can be used for various different things. I know people will comment and say you can use it for this, you can use it for that. I've used it, and that's my point. There are so many uses you'll be able to find for these things, and that's absolutely brilliant. So moving onwards, what will you do next? We'll go over to the bunker silo, to the BGA, and we'll get on to, we'll do the sort of standard conveyor belt systems first, then we'll move on to the fill trigger and the slow conveyor at the end. Okay, and here we are at the BGA. I have taken the liberty of putting a bit of silage or chaff in here, which has now fermented, so I can open the silo. I have got the slow conveyor. The reason for that being, I've just shown you the Lizard S710. What I used to do was use the Lizard S710, bring it here, right up to the silage. That would then lift onto another conveyor belt. Now what I often do is, rather than selling by bucket and that kind of thing, and again a lot of you probably already do this, if I'm going to sell a big bulk of silage into the digester, I would use the conveyor belts to do it, and then you get a continuous stream for quite a while into there without having to go backwards and forwards, and it works quite well. Sometimes these digesters are a long way away from the bunker silo, and like this as well, if you've got 5 silos or 4 silos or bunkers, and you want to unload from this end one, to get from there all the way to there is quite tricky. So you might need to lease or buy a few of these. You might have to have one of these quantums at the end to load into there, because that will raise up, and I'll show you that in a second. You might need to pick up one. In this case I'm going to use the slow conveyor. That's because this will pick up off the ground, and it's got a long boom on it, a long belt. Whereas the Lizard S710 has got a very, very short belt. This will do the same job, but you've got a long belt on it already. And then you need a few of these to go in the middle, and I'll show you how these work in a minute. So, first things first, I'm going to... Actually, I will get in this one. So, the Grimme SL 8022 Quantum. I'm going to show this as well in a little while, doing something else. But so, when I get in it, I can do the same thing, R1 and start engine. I can drive it forwards and backwards, and I can go side to side. It's got jockey wheels at the front, or one jockey wheel that kind of steers it, like that. What I can also do, if I do L1, I can raise it all the way up to there, and anywhere in between. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And what you can also do is the belt can be extended. So if I do R1, I can extend that. Now I've got to be careful because I'm using the joystick, and it can go. So you can extend it, and it goes quite a long way out. It gives this one an incredible reach. Now what I can do, like so, if your silo, like this first one, is incredibly close to the digester, you can actually bring it right up to it, but this won't pick up off the ground. I don't think it does anyway. We're going to test that now. So when I get right up to this won't automatically pick up off the ground. That's why you need a pickup conveyor. Whereas the fill trigger one can. So there's a little bit of a difference there. What I'm going to do is bring that arm back in, so I don't need it that long. Let's close that back down again. That will go incredibly high. I don't know if there's anything in game you would need to do it that high for. What I'm going to do is get it kind of roughly into place first, because I don't know where I need it to be. Now what I'll often do as well is work out where it needs to be over the digester, then I'll back it away, because I don't want it to start filling automatically, because it will do. I'm going to move it out of the way first, turn the engine off, and then when I'm ready to start loading from the bunker into the digester, then I'll move it into place. Now this one, like I've said, is an extendable. We'll get back to that and some other things that can do in a minute. The TC 8016 is a brilliant belt for extending out long distances, and it's incredibly versatile. This one, start engine, same thing. We can drive it, we can steer it with those jockey wheels at the front. It's very, very handy. If I do L1, I can raise and lower this end of the conveyor belt. These bits here are the unload portion, so this will unload onto another belt or into something or a trailer. It has these, like, oh, baffle, I don't know what it's called really, this plate around the end, and it's got one here as well, and we'll see that in a minute. This end here is your collection one, so something else will tip into it, whether it's another conveyor belt or something like that, will tip onto that bit. So let's jump back in it. So that bit, like I say, will raise and lower on L1. If I go to R1, I can raise and lower. If you look at the legs at this end, we can raise and lower that end as well. So we can raise and lower either end if we need to, for whatever height we need to. Now if I go back to L1, I can now move this belt side to side as well, which gives you a bit of versatility, because it gives you a lot of directions you can actually adjust this into, to make it incredibly useful in whatever area you're in, turning corners with belts and that kind of thing. It works really, really well, which is fantastic. So if I go that way, I think, because the tractor's in the way, steer it a little bit. This will go all the way up to 90 degrees. So if I swing this out, thank you farm dog, that will go all the way up to 90 degrees like so. It will go a tiny little bit further, but not really much further than that, which is great. So you can turn a 90-degree angle, you can do various different angles in between if you want to as well. What you can also do, I think if I go R1, I can now move this belt along the length of the other one. Now what will happen is something will unload onto here, it will go along that belt, it will automatically drop off, hit that belt and go along to the end of this belt. So wherever I position it, it will drop onto that belt and go that way. It won't drop onto the belt and go that way, it will only go one direction. And these automatically work. So if I take that right to the very extent, the other thing you can do then when you get to this end, because I had it switched round to 90 degrees, if I swing this back round again, it gives you an incredibly long belt. And that's as far as that will go. But what you could do is take 2 or 3 of these, or 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever you want to do, and line them all up. So you have a huge long belt system that goes from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Very, very handy bit of kit this, for covering expanses, distances, angles, those kind of things. I'm not going to need it for what I'm doing here at the moment, because I'm fairly close to where I'm loading from and into, so I'm not going to need to use it. But that is a very, very good conveyor belt, and I would suggest long distances, perfect. Lease a few of them, line them all up, see how far you can go. So let's get this bunker silo emptied. I'm going to jump into the slow conveyor. This I'm going to look at in a bit more detail of how it works, but I'm going to do the same thing. L1, fold the belt like you can do with the lizard, and then I'll do R1 and start engine. And I think, does this one have beacons? I can't remember if it has beacons or not. I don't think so. There are so many different configurations and controls. So if I... oh, I have got a beacon. There you go, at the end. I missed that. I thought we had one somewhere. There you go, beacon, cool. So what I'm going to do is hopefully get this into a position where I can load from one to the other. And it's just, with the belt systems, it becomes a bit of fiddling around until you get it just right where you need it. This one, you can adjust the angle out a little bit and then up a little bit in various different configurations, and then it will lift up off the ground, and you know, it becomes a high one like the Quantum. It doesn't extend any further out, but it's an incredibly useful bit of kit. So I'm using it as a pickup predominantly on this, rather than I can't remember the controls. There you go, lower it back down again. I don't need it high because it's going to load onto another belt. So if I get it right into position now. Now that hasn't automatically started picking up, and that's the difference with this belt, is that I think I need to turn on the belt to get it to start working. So what I'll do, if I turn the belt on now, it automatically starts up, it automatically loads the belt, but like I said before, with a lot of these belts, it will go to the end of the belt and it will stop unless it's got something to go onto, another belt. Now unlike all these other belt systems where they will automatically load, this one actually needs to be turned on. So what I'm going to do now is, if I position the other belt underneath it, it will automatically load onto this belt. So what I'm going to do is turn the engine on, just get a bit closer, drive that belt until I get underneath it and get the angle just right. And it will become it's trial and error. It's a bit of fiddling around, play with them, have a go, see how they move. Once I get underneath it, it should unload onto it, like so. And that will get to the end of that belt and it will stop. So those belts are both loaded now and they're both full and they can't do anything else. So that one will unload from here, it will pick up from the ground automatically, it will take it all the way to that one, drop it onto this one, and it will take it all the way up this one. So what we've got to do now, let's get in this one, and hopefully I'm not too far out, which I think I might well be now. I might have to adjust them. Is extend that right out. Now once I get over that trigger point, that will automatically start unloading. It will look a bit unrealistic to start off with, like so. If I can extend it a little bit further out, it goes over the over the digester, and away we go. So now, because that's got something to unload onto, I could have unloaded onto the ground if I wanted to, just dumped it all on the ground, but now it's automatically going into the digester. This one's picking up automatically, dropping onto that one, which is taking it up to that one, and dropping it into the digester. And that's it. And there are various different configurations. There's more this one can do, I'm going to show that in a minute. If you're only waiting to see how to use the slow conveyor and the fill trigger one, I have done a video on the fill trigger tools as a whole. I think a link to that will pop up now. But there is more to that. We'll have a look at these. If you want those, pop to the end of the video, because I'm going to do those at the end in a little bit more detail. So that's how those work. And like I say, have a fiddle around with them. The extendable one, this one for raising and lowering, there's various different things you can do, and I'm going to show you that one in a little more detail. But that's it, work at the BGA. What we're going to do now is whiz over and see it in operation, doing something a little bit different. Okay, so we're out of the railroad tracks. We've got the train lined up, we've got a sugar beet car lined up, and we've got the Quantum SL 8022 already set up, ready to unload. What we've also got is the RH 2460, which I said I was going to show you. This can be used for a couple of different things, which I'm going to also show you now. Now, something I didn't show you with this, if I jump into it and turn it on, there's a setting here when I do L1, and it says the second one down where the green triangle is, it says change angle. And you can change that angle by pressing triangle 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, all up to 50. 45, 50, then it goes back to 5 degrees again. It says degrees on there, and you think, okay, odd, what's that for? Well, what you can do is hire a worker. But first what I'll do is fold the belt. When I fold the belt, it turns the wheels at the bottom here, like so, and puts them at a slightly funny angle. And you think, okay, bit peculiar. If I hire a worker now, this will start to sway side to side, like so. So the worker is swaying the conveyor belt from side to side. So when you're unloading into something or onto something, it spreads the load as it's unloading. Realistically, in-game, do you need to? No, you don't, because the trailers will fill up from the centre, and then it will gradually spread the load out automatically anyway, but it kind of gives it a more realistic feel to it. So what you can do, if I now dismiss the worker, go back to that setting, if I change that angle up even further to say 25 degrees and then hire a worker again, the distance that moves, the angle that moves, is now much further. That will go 25 degrees, I think both ways, either way. So it will go to centre, then it will go 25 degrees out the other way as well. So it just kind of spreads the load as you're going. Is it a useful thing? Not necessarily. It doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. You can probably see the sway of it a lot better from this end. But that will just kind of spread the load into whatever you're loading into. So if you weren't sure what that setting was or what it was for, that's what it's for. So what I will do, when it gets back to centre, I'll dismiss the worker. And I get roughly to about there. What I'll also do is go back to here. I'm going to set it back to 0, 45, 50, or 5 degrees, sorry. And then what I'll do is unfold belt, because I'm not too bothered about it doing anything like that. So now I'm ready to use it. So what I've done is I've got the RH 2460. This is for unloading onto, and it does say sugar beet and potato only. So what should happen in conveyor belt mode, you can use this as a kind of trough. You unload into here, I think this will take up to 16,000 litres, I'm not sure. And then it will go up that belt, it will go across the belt at the back, onto this belt here, and off onto a belt you've got set up at the side. Now I'm not sure if it will unload both sides, I think it probably will do. It depends on what side you've got your conveyor belt set up on. So what I'm going to do now, I've got these prepared. I'm going to go and grab the Terrados T440, which I've preloaded with sugar beet. I'm going to put the pipe belt down, and as soon as I get over this unload trigger on here, it will automatically load onto here and then onto the next belt. If I get close enough, I do get close enough to it, like so, and that will keep unloading. So that's unloading into here, which is acting as a conveyor. That will fill up at some point and stop, but it will carry on going. That goes off of that belt, because I've lined that up just right, hopefully, onto this belt, which will go all the way up, and we are now loading the sugar beet into the sugar beet car of the train, which is quite handy if you're doing sugar beets on a map with trains. It could be you're loading into a trailer or on the back of a semi. It doesn't have to be a train, it can be a high-backed trailer of some description, but it just means wherever you're doing it at the side of a field, you can automatically load up. To be fair, the unload pipe on this will go high enough to unload into a lorry, but it depends if you want to do a setup that looks a little bit more kind of realistic. So that's its first setting. It will act as an initial conveyor belt system. That's just showing you how that can work as well. It doesn't just do silage, it will do other things too. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to back away now with that for a minute. I'll come back to that in a second. So that will just keep on going until this trough here is emptied. So we'll let that do that. What I'm going to do, once that's done, I'm going to move the train back till we're onto the grain car, which is this one. Now I don't think the RH 2460, I don't think that will take normal grain. It's only for potato and sugar beet as far as I'm aware, but we'll give it a go, you never know. Okay, so as a quick test, I bought some wheat in a trailer over to it. The unload symbol comes up, but if I press to unload, it says wheat is not accepted here. So the RH 2460 will only take sugar beet or potatoes. Now what I can do, using the other conveyor belt, is if I move that one out of the way very quickly. But feel free to skip through to any parts of this video you'd rather watch. It might be you think, well, actually I know how to use that already. That's fine. I'm just going to move this out of the way for the moment. Put this on the road. Not that it needs to be on the road. Now you can't enter the RH 2460 like the other conveyor belts. You can enter and move it around. This has to be pulled and towed on the back of a, whatever will tow it really. It doesn't have to be a tractor. It does say lower belt. If I do circle, it will lower that down to the ground, and then you can detach it. Lift belt really doesn't need to be, doesn't have to be. You can just unload it. So I'm just going to pop that there for a moment, like so. Now I tried to put the grain cart underneath the conveyor belt, and the lid on the conveyor belt, the grain cart, didn't open. So I've put it over the other one. I don't know if this is going to work. I really don't, because like I say, this isn't a fill trigger one, but it might do. We'll see. What do I need? Probably the tractor would be a great idea, wouldn't it? So let's back this up. Hook it up. I don't know if it will let me tip onto it or not, but we'll give it a go. This is a few of these things I've just suddenly thought, oh, I wonder. So, and that's the thing, it's just having a play around. Do a save game, test it. If it doesn't work, go back to your original save game and come back in. Now, it says unload, so what I'll do now is do that. So that's now unloading onto the belt, which is now going up and unloading into the car. So you can use this belt on its own. Like I said, this won't pick up from the ground, but you can actually tip onto it, which is quite handy, onto the unload portion of it. Now that obviously that animation looks like you're tipping it all over the ground. Unless there's a pile building up, don't panic, it's just going to be loading up onto the belt. And that can continue as long as you want it to do so, just to show you that you can do other things on those belts. So what I'm going to do now is still loading. I don't want to continue unloading. Right, let's put it away. Okay, so that's that one done. So I'm going to show you the other use for the RH 2460, and I need to be hooked up to the tractor, which I've left over here. What is the matter with me? The tractor is what I need. Now I haven't tried actually, I assume you can tip with a bucket onto that belt, I'm not too sure. We can check that. So like I said, to do anything with this one, because you can't enter it, you have to be using another vehicle. So what I can do now, if I do L1 and R1, right, R1. If I go to R1, it's on the green triangle, it says enable pallet creation. So it can be used, as I showed you already, as a trough that will load onto another belt. If I do enable pallet creation, press triangle, and then I disconnect, like so. When I now load it with sugar beet or potatoes, because I only thought about doing this the other day because somebody asked me how to do it because they'd never done it before. This RH2460 acts as a palletizer. So when I go over it now, it will unload, and a pallet will appear by the side of it. So rather than it coming off the belt onto another conveyor belt, because there's not one here, I've enabled pallet creation. So what that's now doing is that will fill up, and this pallet will have 2,000 litres, I think. They do 2,000 at a time, and then you can load these onto a trailer or on forks, or if you've got the root crop sell point or any of those things, you can do it in pallets, because sometimes on maps you're getting more for your root crops palletized than you do loose. It all just depends. It depends if you want to be a bit more realistic, it depends if you want to try something different. And then whatever vehicle you've got with some pallet forks, you take the pallet away, and when you take it away, another pallet will automatically spawn, depending on how much you've got in the trough, and that will just keep unloading. So just drop this down a little bit. So don't want to pick up too high because I don't want to knock the palletizer. If I move that one out of the way, a new pallet will appear, like so. And I can then just load that onto a trailer or take it to a sell point or whatever I want to do. Now the only downside with pallets, I love doing them. I find it's really just fun. I enjoy loading up the pallets using the skid steer loader or something with pallet forks. Is if you load up a big trailer, like anything, like bales, like logs, like anything at all, the more pallets you've got on there, the laggier and glitchier it becomes. So I would suggest if you're going to do pallets, do a few at a time. I mean, I say maybe 10, 20 you might get away with before it gets too horribly laggy. You try and do more than that, stack them in stacks of 3 and have a whole trailer loaded up, it can get a bit laggy. But there you go. So the RH2460 can be used as an unload point which goes onto a conveyor belt, so a conveyor belt system, or it can be used as a palletizer. This will do sugar beets and potatoes, and it will palletise them outside. If you want to turn the palletising off, you just hook it up to a tractor trailer, whatever it is it will hook up to, and then go to R1 and then disable pallet making or palletising. So there you go, that's the RH2460. That's some sugar beet sale. We've put something, oh that's what I was going to do, yeah, very very quickly. Let's see if I can do this with a bucket. While we're here we might as well give it a go. It might work, it might not work, who knows. It's worth a go, isn't it? So if I get over that, will it tip onto it? It does, there you go. So you can tip from a bucket as well as a trailer. And it'll do exactly the same thing. Fantastic. Awesome. There you go, I wasn't sure if that would work or not, but it has. So there you go, a few different options for both of those conveyor belts, different ways to try them, how the higher worker thing and the angles works on that, palletising on that. Let's get away because that bonging is driving me mad. Let's go on to the last couple of conveyors, show you how the fill trigger works and the slow conveyor options available too. Right, I'm here at the Lizard Slow Conveyor by LS-Modcompany, Slow Tide 63. Excuse me, when we go into store to have a look at these, there are a couple of options available. When I go onto it, you can change the main colour, which is fantastic. Anything to suit your needs. Standard or with rolling safety. So what does that actually mean? Well, that's a standard conveyor belt, so you can load all of the things it says on there, every single crop that was available. Rolling safety adds these two bars either side, so if you're doing something like bales or even logs, it stops them as it goes up. If they're not on exactly straight, they can get to the edge and drop off the sides. Those bars just help them stay on there and end up going to where they should be going rather than just dropping off. So what we'll do then is show you it opening and closing, which is kind of what I've done with all of them. Let's jump onto this one. So you enter it like you do with all the others. R1 starts the engine. So R1 and square starts the engine. L1, fold the belt with X. I can drive this like I do with all the others, forwards, backwards, side to side. If I do L1 and side to side, we'll lift it up and down on my right joystick, mushroom, whatever you want to call it. That will lift it up and down. If I go up and down on the right joystick, it takes it in and out a little bit. So it depends what setting you want it on. And again, you can do it anywhere in between. It doesn't have to be all the way up, all the way down. We can bring it down a little bit if we want to. We can come, there we go, all the way back to there. It just depends how you want to set this up. It's entirely up to you. The other thing we can do, if I now go to my R1, I can move these at the sides. You've got two arms that can, like support arms, I guess. I can extend those support arms in and out, and I can rotate them, so I can bring them to any position I want to, like so, then bring them out and lift it off the ground. So it just makes it a more stable platform, and it's entirely up to you. You can bring them up. Let me go the right way, swing them out and do it that way. It does depends how you want to do it. Bring them up and then put them away. No, it's getting the right directions. There you go. Now they don't have to be down. This will still operate. It's not like as soon as you put weight on them they're going to start dropping or anything like that. And like I said, unlike the other belt systems, this one, to get it to operate, if I do R1, no, L1, it says turn on belt. If I press square, now the belt starts operating. This is not an automatic on-off belt. You have to do it yourself. Turn off the belt, turn on the belt. So that one I'm going to leave turned on for a second. This one I'm going to jump onto as well. I'm going to just lift up a little bit. Doesn't matter how far. I'm going to turn on the engine and turn on the belt. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. I've got a couple of things we've set up here. Unlike all the other conveyor belts, which won't do this, if I pick up a bale, probably didn't give myself as much room as I could have done with. Now sometimes putting the bales on here needs to be a little bit neater or tidier. It should work. Should work. We'll see, won't we? Try and get the bale to drop off, of course. Just work at the conveyor. Right, let's extend the arm out a little bit, shall we? So I'm actually hitting the conveyor belt. There we go. And away it goes. Now I used this to good effect on the Valley of the Old Farm, where you had the like the bale loft, hay loft, at the main farm, and I used this for putting bales up onto that hay loft rather than driving them up with a skid steer. There you go. So they'll just drop off the end or to wherever you want to, into the back of a trailer or whatever you want to do them with. What you can also do with this that you can't do with the other ones is logs. And we'll go all over the place. Pick up a log. Now, like I say, if I put them on this one here, there's always a chance when I put it on, that one's obviously going to work, isn't it? Of course it is. But you could see if you were tipping a few on at a time, they could drop off the sides of there without the actual side protection added or raised. I don't know if yeah, added. It hasn't got them on there already. This one, this side, just gives you that added protection that stops things rolling off if you don't want them to. That was not how I intended that to go. You can drop into the trough at this end here, like so. It's not supposed to wedge like that. There we go. And they'll do the same thing. Wherever you want to tip them into, onto, wherever they're going to go, they will follow up the conveyor belt. So that's the good thing with these. These are a pickup conveyor belt, incredibly adjustable, height adjustable. They've got a good length on them. They will take bales, they will take logs, they'll take all the other crops as well. Very, very handy one to have in game. I like this one a lot, and I've used them a fair bit. And like I say, for doing things at the BGA now, I will get one of these rather than get the Lizard S710 pickup, because it does the same thing, and it's got a longer belt on it, and it's a little bit more versatile. So when you get one of these, you can move it around the map as you need to. Let's turn those off because that's going to drive me mad. Because I've gone into that instead of the actual conveyor belt. Take that off. Turn off belt. Comes the other one. Yeah, they're just a very versatile bit of kit. I really, really like them. So, turn off belt. There we go. Very, very good mod. Very, very handy. And like I say, I didn't do these in my initial conveyor belts video because they didn't exist. They hadn't been created at that point. So, moving on to our last conveyor belt system is the Filltrigger Tool from Holger Sengstock. Okay, so this is the SL8022 Quantum. We've already seen one of these, but this is the one by Holger Sengstock, and this is a Filltrigger tool. Unlike the other one of these, the SL8022, if I drove one of the standard ones in game, this is the manure purchase point, buy point, shop, whatever you want to call it. We've got seed and fertilizer refill point. We've got a couple of pallets, and we've got a big bag here. Various different mods all kind of thrown in together. If I use a standard one of these, it's not a pickup conveyor. I could drive it up to any one of those and nothing will happen whatsoever. The good thing is Holger Sengstock made this as well, the shop, the manure shop, and that to go with it. Because if I take a normal trailer up to this manure shop, it will work fine. A standard in-game trailer, no problem at all. If I bring a modded trailer, any kind of modded trailer over to this, I think any kind, there might be a few exceptions, it won't work. So what you need is a Filltrigger tool that goes with it. So I'm just going to show you the Filltrigger tool. Now the actual conveyor belt itself does exactly the same thing. Start engine, it will drive around exactly the same, it raises and lowers exactly the same, it extends exactly the same. That hasn't been fiddled with, but what it will do, you can hire a worker, you can change the angle, you can get it to move side to side. But what will happen, hopefully, once I get it all the way there, these only move at 3 miles an hour, so incredibly slow, like so. If I now fold the belt, no, I don't want to fold the belt. What do I need to do? Why is that working? Oh, it's L3, isn't it? Now that doesn't show that on the options. That's interesting. So if I press L3 now, on a normal conveyor belt it wouldn't work. Okay. Oh, there we go. I wasn't close enough. Right, there we go. So L3, I've got close enough now. Refill belt. So if I do refill belt, it will do that. So it's taking it from there onto the belt system, which a normal Quantum won't do. If I want to unload, I can just unload here and it will tip off the end, so I'll just do that. But obviously it needs something to unload onto. So what would normally happen is that will preload the belt. If I bring a trailer over, it will unload or put manure into the trailer. When I drive away, that will leave that belt preloaded. When you drive along again, it will come again. Now the problem I've got is I was hoping to put that on the ground somewhere because I needed to use it again. So let's see if that will work. Unload here, there we go. So I can unload everything that's on the belt at the moment. Let's get that out of the way. So what I'm going to do now is go over to seed point. And again, these belts won't work normally on seed refill points. Anywhere that's got a trigger, I think anywhere, there's a few exceptions again with this. It won't work on everything. So it now says refill belt. So if I go L3, I can load with seed, unload with seed, put it into trailers, onto the ground, into a scoop, whatever you want to do. It will do the same with fertilizer. It's a very, very useful, the Filltrigger Tools pack. Like I say, I did a video on it. I just thought I'd add this in because it's a belt system refill. Same with the fertilizer. it will take a belt load. If I press it again, it will do another belt load, and so on. What I've also used it for was loading up a trailer of pig food at the store. So what I did was took the conveyor belt, put it where the pallets spawn, and then just respawned pallet after pallet after pallet to load up a trailer. I think it does it with the big bags. I'll just double check. I hope it does. There you go. So what it's going to do now is take everything out of that big bag that's on the ground. That's having a bit of a weird glitch out. Oh, it's taken from the wrong one, hasn't it? It took from the pig food pallet. So the actual trigger on it is actually quite large. So it took from the pig food pallet first. That's why that vanished. And now it's taking it from the big bag, but it will do any of them. So if you have one of these down at your main store and you don't want to have to pick up a pallet at a time to load onto a trailer or load into a trailer or into a seeder, this actually works really well. So as I back up now, it's got quite a big trigger on it. As I get to it, it will start to preload like so. And it will keep loading until that pallet disappears. So it's basically just emptying that pallet out. There you go. And that will put that into a trailer or wherever you want it to go. I thought I would add it in. I think it's incredible. I found it very, very useful over various different Let's Plays. It's a nice addition to the system. Like I say, fingers crossed that in FS19 the standard belt systems are going to be coming across anyway. I would assume they would do. But it would be nice to see some of these come as well. The new modded ones. I say new, they've been out a little while, but that's why I thought I'd do a roundup of how they all work. I hope you found this useful and informative in some way, shape or form. If you have, give us a like. If you don't subscribe yet, please do. If you want to leave a comment, feel free. And if you want to share this video, then please be my guest. Whatever you should choose to do. Thanks for watching.